in this case, if you were to be alone, you would be, reflecting and thinking. Remember, they made fun of thinking earlier, right?
Yes.
It was, Lenina was like, thinking. Why are you always thinking?
Yes, indeed. Oh yeah, I'm here. Yeah, wonderful points.
Frank's alone thinking.
No, I'm trying to think right now. Yeah, for sure. No, I was letting you continue. And I'm also looking at these great comments coming in on the thread too. I can't wait to get around to as well. Like I said, the thinking and the purpose, all that going together, and I think it comes together, like I said before, with the rhyme that Helmholtz had put together. Mm-hmm. And he finally felt like there was that purpose that earlier in the book he said, what do I do with the smarts, with this intelligence, with the ability to craft words and put it together, but with all these words and my ability to comprise sentences and paragraphs and books, the material there and the urge and the permission to even go and express different thoughts and find different things, we start seeing just how limited it really is, where he doesn't even say anything too outside of the box, too outlandish in his little rhyme. It's the fact that he puts the words together that rhyming. Yeah. So it's you can see where purpose can be found very easily in a place that is this repressed.
Yes. And then 14 moves on to Linda dies, and then we have discussions of crematoriums. And then there's there's constant televisions always running. That's interesting. That's mentioned at the beginning of chapter 14. And the thing about chapter 14 is that it's not just about crematoriums, but they actually have this notion of death education. So you're actually conditioned to accept your death and to accept it as this sort of honorable thing to go to the crematorium, and you get recycled to be put back into being. Didn't they say earlier you're made into a fertilizer, and that they have it calculated as to how many people can be turned into how many pounds of fertilizer when they die? So it's There's no such thing as funerals, right? Because now in this society, you don't have a funeral because there's no religious significances to life. It's essentially a death cult. And so what we didn't realize throughout the novel was that we've heard a lot about population control through cloning and through, tailoring the people in a eugenics way to be specific regimented sections of society. But we haven't really heard much about the death yet. But now we learn that this society's whole view of death is completely pagan and based around euthanasia. So, it's not a surprise to us, but the euthanasia society goes together. The death cult goes with the eugenics and population control.
No doubt. I had said it before. It is it's garbage disposal. That's really all it is. And before you had arrived, I had also said that going beyond the lack of religion and a spiritual life, it really just goes to show the nature inside of that hospital. How people don't form any kind of meaningful relationships. They don't build families. They don't belong to one another. Even though they say everybody belongs to everybody, there really is no. There are no friends that are visiting friends in the hospital. There's nobody there for anybody. It is such a disposable society. And all these people are utterly meaningless to their creators and to each other just through their conditioning. It's that's why it creates such this almost obscene scene when John is there and he's mourning a woman who really wasn't ever built to be a good mother, but still was his mother, and he felt this stuff for her, and it's that contrast of what humanity really is in all of its imperfections up against this assembly line of death.
Yeah. I mean, funerals are religious things typically, right? We think about them as signifying this important passage where everybody's going to go through, which is death, into the next phase. And societies that, it's just like marriage, right? Societies that have marriage are societies that have some religious notion of the union. That's at least the whole history of humanity. Yeah, I mean, atheists can get married or whatever, but the history of marriage as an institution is always connected to one's religious beliefs. Then in terms of death, it's the exact same thing, because funerals are typically done because a person, at least before the return of cremation, which is a pagan and Freemasonic practice, people believed in the bodily resurrection, and so the funeral was a very important ritual. With the promotion of the notion of cremation, you actually have the return of the ancient pagan Gnostic ideas that the body's bad, the body needs to be transcended. And that's why even, for example, in the Catholic Church, forever they forbade cremations until the Masons really pushed that for the church to change their position, allow for that. So this is a society that has completely capitulated to that. There's absolutely no notions of anything like, the bodily resurrection or the need for a funeral any more than there is for a marriage. And so you can see that this is a fairly consistent technocracy. And any society that doesn't have God will fall over into this kind of brutality. You'll be a ward or an organ of the state, and that's whether it's the atheist state or whether it's the ancient, pagan Babylonian state. You're just a cog in the state. You're just a piece of skin on the organism of the big body of the state. That's Plato's view. Like, you're just a cell in the macrocosm Superman that is the state.
Wonderful stuff. And that was the end of chapter 14?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, yeah, as I said, Jay, my most collective thoughts on these groupings of chapters right here is I call them the things fall apart chapters. This is really where John, as you see, after Linda dies in this final chapter of this last grouping that we read, this is where he's really he's given up on Lenina. Lenina is just a brick wall. He's given up on the whole society. He's there fist-fighting people in the hospital, trying to throw their soma out the window, but still they're looking at him as if he is just an alien. There's really it's the point of no return for him, for Bernard Marx, and even Helmholtz has really cast his lot too, going in there and helping John fight people. That's the
revolution part. The revolution scene is funny because is this the scene where they like spray everybody down with soma?
Yeah, they just gassed everybody.
Yeah, with a bunch of so it's like if the crowd's getting too ruly, just gas them with Molly or something, get them all chilled out. Get them dancing to a rave or something. Get them back to the orgy porgy, right? If they're getting too unruly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're right. This is where we're really getting over towards the last, the climax of the story, where after this confrontation, we're going to have. I don't want to spoil it if you guys haven't got to the end of it yet, but it's not going to be this. It's kind of a tragedy, and I think it fits for the novel being a tragedy, given that it's about a dystopia. But again, there's going to be parallels that you'll notice with 1984. So the direction that this story goes in, and even though it has a different type of dystopia based around pleasures, the direction of the story in terms of despair will be the same.
That's it. You want to get around to some thoughts on that have been placed into this thread?
Sure.
Okay, well, first thing I have to just acknowledge again are posts like from NJSF, who have full breakdowns with excerpts and everything. I'll see if I can find a couple of things to pick out, but we don't have enough time to get through it all. So I really want to encourage everybody, because these threads will be saved for posterity. Post your own, comment on others, have conversations, gain new perspective. That's the good stuff here. Here's one from Blue Ridge Commentary. Said, the one thing I'll point out in this section is the name of the hospital, the Park Lane Hospital for the Dying. It wasn't until the War for Southern Independence the hospitals went from a place one went to die to a place one might go to get fresh air, food, water, and possibly even recover. And most of what they learned about medicine, which was a lot in a short time, was by accident. Like in the Union blockade wiping out the Confederacy's supply of silk, the common thread used for stitches. Without silk, the Confederates found they could sew wounds with horsehair instead. However, the horsehair was only pliable enough if it was first boiled. That's a lot of dead parasites to get pliable horsehair to sew shut wounds with. Anyhow, I reckon COVID ventilators got us back to hospitals being a place where one goes to die. At least if they can, they'll kill you. And I that's why I said in the opening of that chapter right there, I believe that we have gotten so close to reestablishing that world. Well, and for a time there, under the COVID protocols, if you went to the hospital, you were all alone. You were all alone, next to strangers in isolation. You wouldn't be able to talk to anybody. You were drugged up. You had nobody to advocate for you. So for at least a year and a half, from 2020 until about 2022, we really were living in that world of a preview of this kind of it was terrible.
Yeah, it's a medical scientific dictatorship that's a technocracy in this novel. And you're absolutely right. We got a taste of that because they started rolling out a lot of the automated AI and all that as a result of COOF. That was in the lockstep document that when the COOF happened, when the big scamdemic happened, they would roll out more and more automation because it would be justified under the fact that everybody needed to be distanced from everybody and everybody needed to be at home, stay at home, save lives. Remember all that?
Yep.
And so there's this weird contradiction that's intentional between you're never alone, you're always with people, but you're always alone because you're never connected to people with any direct connection. And that's part of the control mechanism of the society by design. So I do like that Huxley mentioned that. And I forgot to mention, too, when we were talking before, the death education in that last chapter. Death education is a real thing. Like they were pushing that at Columbine before the Columbine stuff. That school was one of the first to really push testing out death education on teens, which, shocker, right, like leads to people then committing, unaliving themselves. And then now here we are, fast forward to 2023, and we've got euthanasia care in Canada openly.
Well, did you hear about this? I was going to cover this today, but I saved it as a bookmark for later in the week. There was a headline from the Daily Star. The headline was, "Now you can, quote, experience death in a virtual reality with disturbing new simulation." So they created almost like a VR simulation. Have you ever wondered what happens when you die? Well, now you can find out thanks to an unusual VR simulation which lets you face death, near-death experiences, and people says it causes panic. They make the bed vibrate. They project you above your body and all that stuff. They do. It's just incredible how we're reading these chapters, and all of a sudden I see that there is a virtual reality death experience that is starting to be dabbled with in some places, and yeah, it's just as morbid as it gets.
Yeah, there's a 1983 movie that's worth watching that's really similar to that with Christopher Walken called Brainstorm. If you've never seen Brainstorm, I recommend it because he basically works at this DARPA project, which is about recording and simulating and causing near-death experiences with, like, brain tech. It's pretty wild, but it fits perfectly into that.
I have to check that out.
Yeah, you should watch it.
Yeah, we just last night I put on the network. We all watched Equilibrium finally together, so it was great to catch up on that one again too. Very, very, very relevant. Here's one section from NJSF. It says throughout this incident, I thoroughly enjoyed how John's coping mechanisms is to seek comfort in the words of Shakespeare, always with the appropriate play. In this case, Romeo and Juliet, letting him know that he what he feels is normal, human, and not just his affliction. It also is telling how the conditioning of Helmholtz is breaking when he later on joins John, listening to his reciting, but still struggles with the conditioning at the mention of mother and father. That's where he just busts out laughing, and I think it was another little moment for John the Savage in realizing, wow, I'm only going to get so far, even with the brightest of them. There's very few that he can talk to. Here's from, let's see here. Hold on, what do we got here? Well, I just missed out on it. Damn it. Oh, yeah, here we go. This is from Quincy's Finest. Said in Chapter 13, John and Lenina have this extremely awkward profession of feelings for each other, where John uses Shakespearean prose to confess his love for her, and Lenina just throws herself at him like the ethot that she is. Then John just flips his wig. He screams at her, basically calls her a whore. This whore scene is very reminiscent of the general sentiment around certain parts of the boards, essentially the politically incorrect board on 4chan. In particular, I would say, where a return to traditional societal values and norms is championed in the horrendous state of modern dating, the lewdness of the culture, and the willingness of people, women in particular, to make easy money by compromising their morals is lamented endlessly. You see a lot of popular new content basically echoing these same sentiments, like Fresh and Fit and the Whatever podcast. My point is that I think that we're at a point in society right now where we're starting to see these types of scenes play out. A lot of men today harbor resentment toward the pornographication of our culture. These are our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, and it's become trendy with sites like OnlyFans to sell yourself for some fast cash. There's a lot of Johns out there today, and too many Lenina. There are a lot of Johns out there today, and too many Leninas, and it's not trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point too. I forgot to mention or think about the pronification of society. That's exactly the society that he predicts in Brave New World.
Yes.
And here we are. Yeah. It's like everything in this novel is like right now. You know what I mean? Like we're like rolling into the actual, death care, austerity, 15-minute cities, technocracy. I mean, it's everything.
I gotta tell you, Jay, it's why people, and they've been saying it in the chat room too, and a lot of lighthearted conversation I get. It's in the threads, it's in the chats, it's in the emails that I get throughout the week. People are really enjoying taking this walk, but do they hate this book? It's not good for the soul at all. They're enjoying it. Because I think it's more so creepy. Huxley is a very effective writer, but there's something pathetic and lamentable about every character. There's really nobody you embrace, and when you do embrace somebody, it's usually tainted with this very heavy stain of pity. And there's
not going to be any heroic characters ultimately. I guess I kind of spoiled things there, but yeah.
It's all right. I think at this point, everybody probably sees where this is going.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, here's another one. Scrappy 1307. This will be the last one that we do. Everything is science. Drugs are spirituality. Eternal. Today's mask-wearing sycophants will no doubt wholeheartedly be let down this path without delay. Trust the science zealots and zombies of today no doubt will chant the current mantra. Nursery rhymes are a chant designed to calm us down. It's funny how completely through one's life expectancy nursery rhyme type wisdom is recited. Yeah, they continue to do that to call themselves back in this book. If they're in a point of stress, they take some drugs. They call themselves back with very primitive and childlike lines, very infantile.
Childlike.
They talk about this infantile nature a lot. That they're just infants.
Remember that Crowley wanted to inaugurate the Aeon of the Child, and part of that is keeping you in an infantilized and arrested development state. So the more that I read this, the more I see that this is actually a Crowleyan level society, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was, I think, in Crowleyan circles. So doesn't that make sense?
It does.
What do you think?
Oh, it does. It no doubt does. And now
and we had that. Remember the imagery of, so the orgy porgy is like basically kind of like a sex magic ritual, and then we have the statement that Mustafa Mond is kind of like this pedo image of Christ, right? Like a blasphemous pedo apostle. Remember that?
I can't wait to. I forget how he ends up. Well, obviously he's not going anywhere. It can't be. But
what I'm saying is like that's Crowleyan, right? To take something like that and deface it with pedo stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of this changed for me, Jay. About 2 weeks ago when you really drove home what kind of associations and what kind of a background Huxley comes from, because it's one thing for somebody to sit down and to kind of play the slippery slope game and do a little bit of projection onto society and make it a little bit dystopian and creepy and ruffle some feathers with a book in the 1930s. It's another thing to have these associations and in the afterwards almost feel like it could be an apologetic in some way, or just some sort of a, hey, I'm appeasing karma right now. I'm telling you, we're coming. And yeah, for you to bring up Crowley and for this to be all very, very similar timing and timelines and outlook, it fits together eerily enough. It does. And here's the end of what Scrappy had to say. I believe Huxley's purpose for writing this book is to manifest it into consciousness of society without a hindrance to free will. I believe that by telling us their plans for the future, Huxley and his elitist friends will be allowed to proceed, at least according to their own occult teachings. Anyway, that must be the karma point. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm completely enjoying this experience, even though I slacked off for a couple of sessions. Well, it's very easy to catch up. Jay, take it away.
What was his last comment?
He just said, actually, it's a little bit more what we were saying. How he believes that he was just seeding this into the consciousness of society.
Oh, he has motives. Again, I don't know the motives. I don't think he was a good guy looking at not just connections, because you could know a lot of evil people and be a good person. But, he specifically mentions why he thinks, LSD and all that's a good thing to promote. I don't think that's a good thing to promote. He's involved in, the circles of everybody working at the Tavistock Institute, UNESCO. As far as I can tell in the other books that he has, I don't see anything that's virtuous or good about what he's up to. I think he's a bad guy. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, well, I'm right there with you. Ali Q says, Bernard at the end of chapter 15 reminds me of the compromised politicians who may have a bit of conscience but yield to their personal fear of making, quote, that one career-ending move, end quote, even though it is the right thing to do. Absolutely no courage. Yeah, no, he doesn't have much of anything. He doesn't have courage. He doesn't have principles, and he really is toward the end, just a rat boy. It's really nothing.
Yeah, I think that nobody in the society has virtue, because the virtues, there's not really a purpose. So if you don't have purpose, like Mustafa Aman had said was removed, then virtue aims at some end or some purpose, right?
Yes.
You choose the good because you want to be good, or you believe in the good, or you believe in these things, that's part of your purpose in life. But there's no purpose, there's no good. There's no choosing either this or that. There's nothing between them. And that's also a Crowleyan dictum too, that there's no. Crowley said that in the aeon that he wanted to bring in, there would be no it would be signified by all choices being equal, meaning that it doesn't matter what you choose, because there is no good and evil. Good and evil is just relative to you, and that's the society they live in here. Is that there's no good and evil. There's just the state, and you either follow it or you don't.
Well, I think that
everybody follows it because there's no reason or basis not to just submit to the state.
And that would be the main theme of what we're living through right now in this time too. There's just really nothing. What is law? I think you think about what kind of moral grounding is needed just to understand and respect the idea of separation of powers in a system of government like we were given, and how it was designed for us in the 18th century. To have any kind of morality, to be able to say, no, this is where we must not cross, and this is what Congress can and cannot do, and then just to get to a point where we are right now, where, okay, well, let's just get a simple majority and we'll just do whatever. Or let's just write it with a pen from the executive office on the Resolute desk, and it's now law because we have the courts. And then we just get into all the other deconstructionist motifs and things like that are that just penetrate every aspect of society, whether it be gender now, banking practices, anything that has equity attached to it. It is all subjective. It is all very And it's all, from day to day. There's nothing that gives it any rhyme or reason. Here's the last one of the night from Mary Jo. Says, I have struggled with the reading of this book because of the dark and depressing nature of these topics. It may not be happily ever after reading, but I feel it is relevant and important to our lives and situations today. The big theme of freedom is under attack on so many planes simultaneously, spiritually, socially, medically, financially. We are being stripped of freedom and truth. It seems unmanageable. And as individuals, we have little power. I think the characters in the book were feeling the same. I hope we can unite to find the answers humanity needs before we become enslaved to the degree that the characters are in this book. God-fearing people in groups like this might just save the country from a similar outcome. Thanks for leading, Frank and Jay. And Dyslexic Angel said, same here, Mary. Yet I felt a little joy when I read this. And I think that, Jay, even though we're 1 week away from finishing this, it is nice to know that we still have a little bit of breathing room. And we aren't there just yet. And if we're not there just yet, then you never know.
Yeah, no, I think in our world, we have hope. And again, I'm not going to spoil this story because a lot of you guys probably haven't gotten to the last part, but there's not going to be a lot of hope. I'll say that. But we do have hope. So thank God we're not in this universe of Brave New World. I think people are waking up, and a lot of this stuff is collapsing because it's not going to work. I mean, they may do really crazy things and put in a New World Order technocracy for 100 years and then, it goes away, or it may just all collapse right now. So, the system isn't God. They would like to, in a Hobbesian Leviathan sense, think that they're God, but it's just run by human beings, and humans are fallible. And ultimately, I would say that there's something demonic behind them, but even that's not infallible or, omnipresent or omnipotent. So, I don't think the system is going to fail.
I'm with you, Jay, and I appreciate your time again this week, and I'm looking forward to the finale next week. 8:30 on Monday next week, we have chapters 16 just finish the book, and that's it. We're doing it. This has been a wonderful ride. Thanks again, my friend.
Thank you.
You want to plug a stream, anything that you're going to be doing tonight, tomorrow, the next day?
We pretty much have streams and podcasts every day now, so I'm always running nonstop. But we'll be doing a best and worst of Ben Affleck, which there's some really shitty ones. But he has that long time kind of CIA deep state connection, and that's pretty public. So we thought it'd be interesting to run through a series of Ben Affleck movies, given all the propaganda that's in them. So we'll be doing that Wednesday. Yesterday, I did a John Wick stream where I went into the history of assassinations. So, because, John Wick's about order of assassins. So, and then prior to that, I did a stream Monday or so, or maybe it was last Saturday or Friday, about UFO alien psyop. We did a deep dive into Jonestown. Anyway, all of those are on the channel right now. And then we'll have some, like I said, some Ben Affleck propaganda dissecting this week. Exciting!
I can't wait to get all caught up with John Wick, and I'll have to make sure I watch your thing after I get the fourth one under my belt.
Yeah, the history of assassins is pretty fascinating. It's worth looking into.
I will. I can't wait to do it. And in the meantime, enjoy your week. We'll be in touch, and we'll do this again next week.
You too, Frank. Thank you, man. Have a good week.
Thank you, Jay. All right, guys and dolls. Thank you again for everything. I want to thank Matt, 1776, over there in the chat room on pill.net, Foxhole. That's the creator of the whole website. He and the other Matt, the Matts. Matt Squared. They have worked so well and so hard alongside people like me. I don't know. I'm sure that they talk to a lot of people and they work alongside of the creators. Many have been there longer than I have. But in the time that I've been there, we have worked so nicely in creating ideas that can enhance the way that creators, that broadcasters are able to go and interface with their audiences. And this night is a testament. The private stream, I said, Matt, listen, I need to be able to have a place, and everybody does, to really disassociate themselves from YouTube. One thing that YouTube does very well, private streams for exclusive content, and you need to be able to make it so that people who aren't on Foxhole can still click a link and watch. And tonight, it's a success. So thank you so much, Matt. I'm really looking forward to building more and more momentum for the network and this show on this platform going forward. It's always good to know it's a reliable security blanket. It'll always be here. So thank you, guys and dolls. Go to quitefrankly.tv. Again, Foxhole, the guys at the network, they are going to be launching it right now. 007, Quantum of Solace. It's Mystery Movie Monday. Don't go to bed yet. I'll be in the chat room hanging out with you before long. Good night.